You're tuned into another episode of Reggae Talk, the voice of reason for the culture. Another week, for real. Wagwan.
Cha, welcome back. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be back, fresh off the jet like we never left, like you said.
Fresh off the jet like we never left. Yeah, man, back to it. A lot of people are hitting us up like, yo, when is the next episode? But listen, man, sometime life takes its course, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, to just talk about it a little bit, we went to Jamaica, a little vacation.
Oh, boy.
Had a great time, so
Janu.
Pretty sure some of you guys seen the flicks, So it was a good time.
Yeah, man. So if you follow us on social media at Reggae Music Forever, at AKA For Real, you follow our stories and everything. I'm sure you saw little clips of what took place in Jamaica.
And it kind of broadened our knowledge, our perspective on Jamaica in itself. So we should probably give you some of that in this episode. So look forward to that.
Yeah, man. But the Jamaican trip was absolutely amazing because obviously we don't live in Jamaica. So sometimes it's good to go back to the source just to get a little perspective, first-hand perspective of the culture.
For sure.
You know what I say? So that's why we definitely went out to Uptown Mondays and bag of things and
Mojito Mondays and
Mojito, street dance,
Freshman Cove,
Frenchman Cove. That's what I say. Who works?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Big up Jamaica.
Big up.
Yeah, man.
Crazy thing. Yeah, man. But people, you know how we do our thing. We look at the culture, we look for trends, and from those trends, we try to give you guys a different perspective from the naked eye.
Hold on, before we even go further, let's today we have Infrarebel in the building. He's gonna be giving us some insight as well. Infrarebel.
Yes. Infobach is in the building. Reggae Talks. I made a short step away, but I'm back on it. Back
on task, like you never left.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys might know him. He's the graphic designer for Reggae Talk. So also we have Colado in the building.
Yeah, man. Special guest.
Family.
Yellow peeps, Colado.
Well, I'm just stopping to show some love to Reggae Talks. You know what I'm saying? You guys doing great things, and I just want to put a little input in. So here we go.
Ladies. Yeah, the man gave the sexy voice.
Man, turn up the sexy voice. Gyal!
I have to turn on my one to know.
One, two, that say gyal.
Oh, wow.
Hey, y'all. Bunty challenge. Yeah, man. But let's get into it. So from the other day, we've been seeing a lot of things across social media, a lot of things in our real life about. It's like a little rift between the new generation artists and the veterans,
right?
The yesteryear artists, and it's like a constant back and forth, And once you have a constant back and forth between old people and young people, clearly there's a generation gap.
So let's tell us, what is a generation gap? What does that mean? For those of us that might not know.
Yeah, man, generation gap. Because sometimes I'm glad you asked that question, for real. Because sometimes we hear terminologies, we hear words, and a lot of us don't really know what those words mean.
Right.
You might have some idea, but as simple as generation gap is, many people might not know what generation gap is. So before we even go any further,
let's give the Webster Hall definition.
Let's give them the dictionary definition of generation gap. All right, so I'm going to read it. Generation gap. A lack of communication between one generation and another, especially between young people and their parents, brought about by differences of taste, values, outlook, etc.
There you have it. That sums it up.
Yeah, man. So give them in layman's term, the Jamaican way. Give them the Jamaican definition, for real.
when the younger people don't understand when the older people don't understand the younger people, them thing,
Yeah. Or the older people don't understand the younger people.
Vice versa, yeah.
back in my days, things them said things aren't the same. Music not nice anymore.
Them massa here, me I say no.
You what? That a music?
But wait, what kind of music this?
What kind of music?
Don't mean a
this?
short business.
Yo, I'm glad you touched on that because we're gonna get
we're gonna
a little bit into that later on.
You know, once you get to these levels of concept, we have to talk about Dung and Not Short. It was one of those that definitely need some discussion about. Oh, and it definitely applies to same thing with hip hop. I've been hearing a lot of hip hop fans saying the same thing. Like the yesteryear artists that was real hip hop, and they even go as far as saying that the new hip hop right now is not real, it's mumble rap, and they downplay it. But if you talk to the new generation, the new fans, they're like, "What are you talking about? This is life. This is hot. Future, little Tekashi 6ix9ine, these is whatever." So we're gonna talk it. We're gonna get into details about that.
So clearly, there's a generation gap across different genres. It's happening in hip hop, and the same thing is happening in our culture.
Right.
You know, the reggae dancehall. So let's dash of the area.
No. Almost.
Well, I dash of the area, yo.
Catch it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But
I mean, for those of you guys who's probably wondering why we got the champagne here, it's one of the ladies' birthdays and we're celebrating, so we're gonna pop that after we finish the
man, tonight is a celebratory night.
Yeah.
That's the kind of mood we're in right now.
Yeah.
So once we're done recording,
champagne.
the ladies them round us up.
Champagne splash.
You know what
Champagne
I'm saying?
splash.
It's that kind of night. You already know.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But so where do we see, for real, where do we see generation gap issues in the culture?
All right. Well, let's talk about the evolution of Jamaica first.
Jamaican music.
Of Jamaican music, of course. We all know that Jamaican music, reggae music, started from Mento. For those of us that might not know, Mento was inspired off of jazz influenced music. Back in those days, we know that our culture, we take something, we hear something outside, and we say, you know what, I want to make it in my own look a unique way. So boom, them hear jazz, turn it into Mento, in their own style. Then from Mento, you have another generation say, yo, tired of Mento, I want some different style of music. You come with ska. So you hear ska now, so you hear that poppity pop, pop, boop, 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 the happy music, you know what I mean? And then we're going to talk about the influence that caused these changes a little further on. But then after ska, then it became reggae, the reggae that we know today, with conscious, talking about, the political oppression that we're going through, or maybe even the oppression that you're facing in your community and how you get through everyday struggles. And then we have dancehall, which is popular right now, and we're going to talk about the difference of that. Maybe you want to go into details and tell maybe why the ska and reggae there was a difference, a diverge, a change.
Yeah, man, but definitely I need people to understand that as the music change, there's always a gap between the generations. There are always people who are not happy about the change. Reggae music is not the same. I'm sure when ska came from Mento, then it went to reggae.
The lovers of Mento probably were like, what kind of music named ska? What is?
Yeah, man. What is?
Yeah, and then after when ska came, I'm pretty sure the people who love ska were hearing reggae was like, what kind of slow down conscious music this more? I want some happy music. So
then the rocksteady, we've got the rocksteady.
Oh yeah, rocksteady, definitely right, because rocksteady came right before the reggae. So you could see that there's always a generation gaps throughout the years, especially if there's a transition of music. But you have to understand the younger generation takes things and change it into something that they can identify with. So we have to understand that that's just a part of life. Change is constant.
Yeah, man. That's one thing that's guaranteed is change. Or what's the saying? The only thing that's constant is change, right?
Yeah.
But let's go back to the Bob Marley movement, the Rasta movement.
Right.
Because Rasta said love.
Unity.
Rasta said unity.
Right.
Rasta said oneness.
Selassie, live it and reign it and blessed be.
Yeah, man. So when Bob Marley was singing all this music about love and oneness, that was really the thing. And remember, in Jamaica at the time, Bob Marley wasn't originally embraced. As Damien Crawford said the other day, I think he was on Nightly Fix. He said Bob Marley was seen as a noisy Russ.
Right.
He was a noisy Russ. Jamaica people didn't really embrace.
Fast forward today, Bob Marley is a legend. I mean, you cannot not think of Jamaica and not think of Bob Marley. It's like, it goes hand to hand. So you can see that the generation gap that cast Bob Marley as a noisy Russ had to go along with the change. That he was legendary.
Legendary, but the Bob Marley was singing songs about love and unity and oneness, and at the same time there was crazy political unrest that was going on in Jamaica. So that kind of opened up the floodgates to for people to express themselves differently.
Right.
The younger generation. And those people are the people who gathered in the dancehall. Because remember, dancehall was originally a space where people went to have a good time.
True.
You know what I say? And those people in the dancehall space, obviously those were, marginalized people.
So let's talk specifically about a situation. So Bob Marley came out singing with the ska movement. He came out in particularly with uprising of the Rude Boy movement at the time with a song called Simmer Down. Simmer Down was the first time an artist ever made a song directly speaking to his direct community. Simmer Down was directly speaking to the Rude Boy gang that was infiltrating Jamaica and spreading violence. They were at the time doing a lot of stabbings and a lot of violence at the time. So he came up with Simmer Down. The DJ played it, and it was an instant hit. If you guys don't know the song, Simmer Down. Right. So now this, we can say, was the start of something of reggae in a sense, where you're singing directly of something happening in your community to the direct people involved in it. So now, at that time that he made the song Simmer Down, it was a ska, but it was a movement. But now what happened is these same Rude Boy movement, these people are the younger crowd. They're into the violence. They're into sexual explicit type of situation. Yeah. They might be not interested into hearing some conscious music at the time. These are the younger generation. They want to hear something more, toward what their lifestyle is, which is, negative violence. So
because that's what was happening at the time.
Exactly.
People sing about their realities. Those people who were convenient in the dancehall space, and from that came the evolution of the music. Not to mention with the technological advance at the moment, they call that was like the beginning of the digital age,
right?
With the the keyboard
and the analog system. Cause remember back then, when them time the instruments, it was drummer. You have the bassist, you have the guitarist. They come in to the studio live and they build the rhythm live. Then there was an introduction to technology. Now you have the producer having the I don't even know the terminology of this machine, but he can actually do the drums on a machine. So that now started a whole new sound. So this sound would be what we call today considered dancehall.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Yeah, man. And the pace changed. The pace changed like dramatically.
Right. The tempo increased.
The beat per minute, it changed. Mm-hmm. It was, and the toasting, everything just started to materialize. Right. And guess what was going on at the moment? The reggae purists. Oh yeah. The ones were miserable.
Of course, the ones
because the content changed dramatically. The content wasn't about love anymore. It wasn't about oneness. It wasn't about unity. It was more about sex and lewdness, violence,
drugs.
But that was those were the things. Those were the issue that was. Go ahead.
And at the time, these type of music were contributed to a lot of the artists that was making these music. We could say King Yellowman.
Yeah, man. Yellowman music back in the days is very raunchy.
Right.
Very, very raunchy. You know? So people, can you really imagine the generation gap that was occurring at that time in the 80s? From the 70s where it was slow, you know, the slower pace.
Love music, John Hope.
Slower pace. They sing about love and unity. And all of a sudden, no,
you
the
have
pace
someone
change.
coming in and they're talking about
And it's rugged and raw.
Undergirl and give them, give out
say?
a Yellowman lyric.
So, but hear what I'm saying though. Hear what I'm saying though, for you.
I'm gonna talk about the baggy.
Gunning up. Where's the red man? Gun in a baggy?
Gun in a baggy.
Gun in a baggy. That's a little Lenny. Little Lenny. Little Lenny. So that was like that was like about the late 80s.
Right.
Little Lenny. That album, by the way, bad. I think that Little Lenny album named Gun in a Baggy. I play it in my car all the time. Yeah, man. But what I'm saying is that it was the generation gap at that time, because we want people to understand it's like a transgression between the 80s up to the 90s. We're going to bring you up to the 90s and to present day. And the point of the matter is that there's always a gap. Definitely. Because things and times change. Things and times change.
And you're always going to have someone trying to hold on to the old, what they're used to.
Yeah,
so
man.
That's going to create the gap. So if you're holding on to something that you love and so dear to, you're always going to fight the new. So that's what creates that gap. So you can see where if, you're used to Bob Marley and John Holt and they're hearing this love music and feelings and then, then there's a transition now and now you're getting something different, something, talking about guns and drugs or Underwoman and, you're going to feel like, oh, well, yo, hold on now. So this is the birth of the reggae purist.
Yeah, man. But let's get into the 90s now. The 90s is what everyone loves. People say the 90s is dubbed. The 90s is dubbed as the golden era.
Right.
The golden era of dancehall music, because dancehall music became the popular culture, popular music of Jamaica. It's no longer the then new generation. They weren't listening to reggae.
Right.
Generally speaking.
Right.
Because as a youth coming up in the 90s, reggae music was really my music.
True.
It didn't speak to me.
But then dancehall straight.
It didn't speak to me.
Facts.
Because it didn't speak to me because those guys, they were singing things that I thought was fun, I thought was cool, and it came across. It was easy for me to repeat it.
Right.
It made me feel good.
Yeah.
As opposed to my parents or people generation before them, they wanted no part of it. This is back in the 90s.
So this when Barris tuned them nicest thing to my daddy. Barris,
yeah, man. John Holt and them, man.
Luciano, and yeah. When them time for me, I Spragga Benz and Bound to Kill him, say Beanie Man
and them man.
Yeah.
Terror Fabulous,
All of them artists, Super Cat,
Right.
Shabba Ranks. Yeah. The 90s is just a great time, and even the newer generation right now, I think many of them would agree that the 90s is
Massacre
just
say it all the time.
Massacre.
Nothing about like 90s dancehall.
Jano, what? Massacre right? I know, dog.
Massacre, my borrow from the 90s dancehall with them new
Massacre
new
is
song
doing great right now, man.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah, man. Big up Massacre. He came a long way.
Jenna.
But yo, let's get back on track. So the point of the matter is that the point that we're trying to make is that there's always a gap. Things and times change, and in every generation there's a gap. You get what I'm saying?